The first time I heard my own sirens coming for me, I was holding a sweating glass of lemonade and watching my 8-year-old draw figure eights with a scooter on the sidewalk. The second time, there was a brick in my living room and a note that said, "Get out." So, yeah, that happened. You ever feel your life tip on a hinge you didn't know was there? One silly second of normalcy, then a hard click, and suddenly you're on the wrong side of the door. Let me back up a sec. It was one of those Saturdays that looks like a postcard, light bouncing off the maple leaves, grill smoke hanging lazy in the air, my daughter inside with a book, my boy out front with a navy helmet and scuffed sneakers, invincible because we told him he was, because that's the story you tell kids until the world edits it. I'm Jordan Hale, Sheriff. Jordan Hale back then. But that afternoon, I was just Dad in a t-shirt. Porch, steps warm under my feet, lemonade rings sweating onto the rail. Our street, Maple Ridge, is the kind of place where dogs know mailmen by name, and every lawn has the same stripe pattern, which is how you spot trouble. It always arrives dressed like order. She came out of the beige stucco next door, like a fire drill in a lime green tracksuit. White visor, platinum shellacked hair, the roses along her walkway trimmed like soldiers. Evelyn Marlowe, a name that sounded like a wine and cut like vinegar, marched to her invisible property line and pointed past the azaleas, not at the ground, but at my son's chest. "You do not cross onto my property," she hissed. "This is a private residence. There are rules you people need to learn. There are rules. You people," 2 words that dropped the temperature on a July day, 2 words thicker than humidity, and just like that my little family tableau snapped. The lemonade turned to battery acid in my throat. The parent in me rose and the other uniform slid over my skin. Not cloth, not Kevlar, the armor black fathers wear every time they're told to be smaller, calmer, safer than any human should have to be. I went down the steps, measured hands, visible voice like a metronome. "Ma'am, he's a child on a scooter. The sidewalk's public. We're not looking for trouble." She didn't want calm. She wanted a stage bow to the rules of this community, she said. And the word bow hit me like a shove. Not respect, not follow, bow. My boy's hand found mine, cold and shaking, and I slipped him behind me because instinct beats policy every time. "Go inside, buddy," I told him, eyes never leaving hers. She flinched back, clutched her phone like a grenade pin, and declared to the street, "I'm calling the police." I almost laughed. You know what I mean, because technically I am the police, or was, and county dispatches had my badge number and coffee order memorized for years. But there's a deeper laugh, the bitter one that sits low in your ribs. Because I also knew this performance, knew the currency of a shaking voice, knew the script where a woman like Evelyn paints herself small and a man like me is sketched as the shadow. The siren came, my siren. A cruiser parked at the curb like a verdict. 2 of my youngest, Bryant and Shaw, stepped out and went a little pale when they saw who was on the porch. Procedure separated us, as if a picket fence could keep truth from leaking. She told her version in choir soprano, tremble hands drawn big like she was conducting, and the rookie dutifully took notes because that's what the book says. With me, Bryant's pen hovered over the form, "Sir, can your perspective," and I gave him the facts, every syllable shaved down, because any heat in my voice could be relabeled aggression and stapled to my name. Then Shaw walked back grim and said the part that took the air out of my chest. "She's asking we notify Child Protective Services, says your kid was unsupervised, says your response was unstable." That word unstable heavy as shackles, and suddenly the system I'd given my years to was pointed at my front door. We did the living room talk afterward. My wife Ava braced in the hallway, my daughter with brave eyes and a tremble she wouldn't show my son. Quiet, twisting the strap on his helmet. And I tried to translate a centuries-long mess into something an 8-year-old could hold without breaking. She told a lie, and when people tell a lie with their whole chest, the police still have to check. That's the rule, that's all. Later, when I tucked him in, I saw he'd turned his favorite toy cruiser around so it faced the wall, a small protest with 1,000 pounds behind it. By morning, the fire had Wi-Fi. An anonymous post on the town forum, a warning to parents, all flag emojis and crocodile tears described an unstable neighbor, and a wild child didn't need my name because she'd provided enough breadcrumbs to feed a geolocator. Shares piled up, then a citizen news blog headlined it like a tabloid. Local sheriff menaces elderly neighbor. And the county commissioner called me, sounding like a man who'd put his finger to the wind and found a hurricane PR situation. Jordan, we need your side, and my side felt like a guest pass to my own house. Internal affairs. Thorne, dry as a saltine, sat me under a blinking red light and read Evelyn's fiction into the record like scripture. I answered cool because I had to watch him mark boxes that could cost me everything, and left that gray room on administrative leave badge and sidearm surrendered like a scene out of somebody else's movie. If you've never been put on leave, imagine jumping out of a moving truck and watching it keep rolling without you. The radio goes quiet, the rhythm dies. The phone stops ringing, and all you can hear is your name being chewed up on TV, printed under a coward's headline, stretched across a segment hosted by a man who thinks empathy is a weakness and nuance is a conspiracy. Neighbors waved a little too bright. Others swiveled carts fast in produce. The kids' invitations thinned, and the local paper paired my campaign photo, smiling and solid, with a grainy shot of our house at dusk, like they were trying to teach readers how to squint guilt into pixels. Helplessness is gasoline. Add one spark and men like me start building. So I called Sam Porter, retired detective, my old partner with a memory like a card catalog and friends in every file room. She didn't just hate your kid's wheel track, he said. After a few days of digging, she hated the family before you too. Turns out the previous owners, 2 doctors, both Latino, had moved cross-country to outpace her complaints, her 911 calls for loud music that sounded a lot like plates and forks to everyone else, her anonymous grievance to the hospital that almost nuked a career. Sam also found lawsuits, roofing hedges, a sidewalk crack Evelyn had filed like it was a hobby. A pattern emerged when she felt small. She reached for systems bigger than her to make other people smaller. Then a clerk I once helped Lillian Cho County Courthouse good at finding things buried on purpose slipped me a call and a location. Some of the old depositions were never sealed, she whispered. Basement 3rd box on the right. On microfilm, older than my marriage, I watched a ghost come to life. A 1970s discrimination case against Marlowe and Wythe, her late husband's company, line after line from qualified black applicants turned away. Then the kicker, a white secretary, swore under oath that Evelyn herself had sat in hiring meetings, had said, "We can't have that kind in here. It lowers the tone." Lowers the tone. The same perfume on a new skunk rules as decor virtue as a weapon. The night after I printed those pages, the brick came through our window, a red rectangle surrounded by glittering teeth of glass, note banded to it like a threat you could hold. Shaw and Bryant processed the scene fast and tight, eyes big with anger this time, but rumor mills don't run on evidence, they run on appetite. He staged it, someone posted, he wants sympathy. That's when the whisper landed, a blocked number. A woman who sounded like she'd rehearsed this call, in the dark. "I'm in Evelyn's bridge club," she's been winding up. Her nephew says, "Men like you need to be put in their place." He drives a beat-up pickup, lost his job to a black supervisor. He's angry. Sam matched the description to a name, Colton Reed, and then to a plate, and a camera caught Colton's truck 3 blocks from my house 20 minutes before the 911 call. Not enough to cuff him blind, more than enough to draw a red line from Evelyn's decades-long bile to fresh glass on my floor. Strategy beats rage. Benson. Lee reminded me, union lawyer sharp as a tack. You don't want to sit on. So we went over Thorne's head to the only man who cared more about liability than truth, the commissioner. In his office, wood-paneled and humid with politics, Benson laid out the past like evidence bags, depositions with Evelyn's words inside them, the prior family statements. The traffic cam stills, the note, the brick, the whisper, and I watched the commissioner's expression slide from practiced sympathy to naked fear. Not of me, but of the headline he'd get caught under if he didn't move. Effective immediately, he said, like a judge in a movie. The administrative leave is rescinded badge and firearm returned, IA closed, pending a separate investigation into Ms. Marlowe's conduct, and I want Colton Reed in a box today. We didn't leak it to a friendly blogger. We did it clean, a press conference on the courthouse steps. Microphones like black. Daisies me back in uniform with a voice steady enough to hold a load. I told the story from the scooter to the siren to the brick to the box in the basement, laid out the receipts. Thanked the clerk who found the truth and kept my anger on a leash because the facts could snarl for themselves. News vans pivoted lower thirds, retyped neighbors who'd been performing neutrality found their spines. The DA opened a civil rights probe. Detectives brought Colton in, and his confession fell out of him like a bad tooth. She said, "Scare him." She said men like him only understand fear charges, filed hate crime enhancement added. Evelyn took her path in shame, false report, intimidation, a civil suit from us for defamation and emotional distress, her homeowner's insurance, refusing to foot the bill for her malice. The settlement we accepted wasn't about dollars. It was terms, a printed apology, a restraining order, and the for sale sign we watched sprout in her perfect lawn. Some weeds are best removed at the root. I stood my people up in the briefing room, next all of them from captains to the ink, barely dry on their academy certificates, and I said what the policies won't say plain. Procedure is supposed to be the floor. We stand on, not the blindfold. We pull down. If a call is being used to weaponize fear, you slow it down. You widen the lens. You ask who has power and who has risk. Read the whole story, not just the line someone shouts into a phone. We wrote a new block of training that week, recognizing weaponized reporting, de-escalating bias-soaked calls, and pinned it to the inside of the book as a scar we don't forget. On paper, that's when the credits could have rolled. My name-cleared badge warmed back onto my chest. The villain unmasked in a headline font, large enough to see from across town. But our house didn't bounce back like a spring. It settled differently, like any structure, after a quake coffee on the porch again, but with our eyes flicking to the empty stucco, my daughter's laugh returning with an undertow. My son's world still smaller than the street out front. One evening he sat on the back step, elbows on his knees, scooter at his side like a sleeping dog. And he said it quiet, not looking at me. Is she going to come back? And then after my no, after the promise, I could keep the one I couldn't. Is there another one? I didn't lie to him. Yes, I said there's always another one, but there's also us. That word us kept me up a long time. I could keep the badge and keep fighting inside a system that had just been turned against my house like a wrench, or I could choose the job that isn't listed on a business card. I turned in my resignation a month later. The commissioner tried to spin it, tried to pin a medal on it, but for once, I didn't let the story get rewritten. I'm not leaving the fight. I told him I'm changing my front line. You make choices in a uniform every day, who to believe, where to stand, when to speak. But the choice that matters most is the one where your kid looks at you and decides what safety means, what justice feels like, what home is. We're rebuilding now, not loud, not fast, not for TV. It's in the way Ava and I sit with our son when he edges the scooter back to the sidewalk, in the way my daughter side-eyes adults who smile too quick and asks better questions than most council members, in the way we wave to the young family that bought Evelyn's house, sticky-faced toddlers and chalk drawings on the walk, and in the way I can finally sip a whole lemonade without tasting metal. Some days the old fear taps the glass. Some nights I still hear a siren that isn't coming, But the boy rides anyway, and that's the kind of victory that doesn't need a podium. There's one more thing I should say, because if I don't, the ending sounds too neat. And life isn't the code that let Evelyn cash out her fear and spend it like a weapon, didn't vanish with her apology. It lives in small rules and big assumptions and forms, in who gets the benefit of the doubt when two stories collide. I couldn't change that code from a desk with my name on it. What I can do, what I am doing, is teach my son and daughter how to push back without losing themselves. Teach my neighbors how to tell the difference between a rule and a cudgel, and tell you straight, as I know how, that you can be wronged without being ruined. You can be angry without becoming what you hate. You can lose a title and keep your purpose. The other evening sunset bleeding between the maples. Everything gold, the way it gets for 5 blessed minutes. My boy coasted past the spot where that invisible line used to live in our heads. A tiny wobble, then steadier, then grinning, and I jogged alongside, not to catch him if he fell, he didn't, but to be there when he looked back and saw me, because sometimes that's the whole job. He braked by the porch, breathless, flushed, and asked, "Are we okay?" Not the kind of okay you find in a report, the kind that sits in your bones. "Yeah, kid," I said, hand on his helmet, forehead to forehead for a second that I wished could stretch forever. "We're okay, and if another one shows up, we'll be ready." If you made it this far, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? What does home mean where you are? And have you ever seen rules used like a weapon? Drop it in the comments. Tell me what justice looks like on your block. And hey, if stories like this light you up or make you mad in the right way, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs the reminder that a lie can burn hot, but the truth, stubborn as a porch light, stays on. You know what I mean?